Good morning, everybody. It is 8:12 a.m. It is April 8th. Welcome to my channel. Now, obviously, we made a deal, ceasefire for 2 weeks with Iran via Pakistan. So, markets are ripped up. Ripped up. And yesterday, it kind of pulled back a little bit, tiny farther than I thought. And I tried a long, got stopped. Then I got into another long, and lately I've been noticing I hit a lot of one-to-one trades pretty easily, and of course I knew this would happen. I knew this would happen. Ever since I've been doing the one-to-one on some trades, I'm hitting it, and then it's going to 2-to-1, 3-to-1. I knew this would happen. Okay, so I was in that long. I was in that long, and some news came out or something positive, and went right to my one-to-one, and then kind of hung out, and then it ripped up. So that was the first rip up off the lows, my long. But again, like I said, I got hit one to one. I was out. Fast forward to later in the day, we pulled back. I can show you right here on a half-hour chart to show you what I was particularly looking at here. Let me show you. So in this chart of the ES, I was particularly looking at this right here. Would be a demand, a 30-minute demand. Also happened to be like the value area low. Okay. So once we pulled back here, I had a bunch of fair value gaps here as well. I was looking at it and I said, okay, I think I want to get long here. So I got long at like 60. What did I get? I put it on my thing. I think it was 66.02. Yeah, 66.02. And so while I was in the trade, and you never know when they're going to work, right? While I was in the trade, let's give you a little better example here. While I was in the trade, so we can use the SPX here, right? There was positive news that came out. Not the ceasefire yet. And again, I scaled out one contract and then kept scaling out. And then I put my stop here on like a 1 minute chart at the previous day's highs, and I got whipped out, and then it ran up all the way to here. And I was like, oh. So that's in that trade. So see, in that particular trade that I did, the third one, that was almost a 2R. Okay. In that particular trade, I liked the price action, and I said if this could really run up, because I feel this is where like experience comes in. The way we moved down violently gave us poor structure, right? Let me show you. Let me just show you real quick what I'm talking about. Let me in one sec when I bring this up. Okay, so here's a 5 minute chart. Okay. Now, let's go to the 1 minute so I can really show you what I saw. Okay. So I was long here. All right. And what happened was we just pushed down with this poor structure here, right? And I knew that probably no one wanted to hold the bag when this deadline was approaching. So I said, this is probably a good long. Okay. Got in. Now, this candle right here, there was that little shot of positive news that came out right here. Kind of almost went up to VWAP. And then once we got up here, I scaled one out. And then right here, this was my 2-to-1 target. Previous day's lows. This was a 2-to-1. So, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Hold on one second, folks. My daughter needs me for something. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So what I did is I said, all right, it pushed up, and within this, even this 1 minute candle, you can't even see it. I said, all right, let me put it here. I'll lock in 2 to 1 for the rest of my contracts. And within this candle, it whipped me out. And then I saw this. Oh, I was just like, ah, it's okay, right? So even the trade before, let's go back to the trade before I was in. I believe, yeah, I believe I'm as long in here. I have it on my Discord. Hold on. Let me just see here. I'm as long 6582s. 6582s. Yeah, I'm as long right here. And then I got that, knocked me out of my trade, got a 1 to 1. And then it kind of chilled. And then look what it did. Boop, 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 boop. I was like, oh my God. It's just the way trading is, though. That's just the way trading is. Okay. So, and then of course we're ripping today, right? We're ripping today. So, just wanted to share that with you. That was like two times that obviously I would have had more in the 2 trades, but that's just how it goes. It's fine, right? Because I know now, whenever and the point of what I was trying to show you guys is I felt we could get a big move. Hence, I had my target at like 2 to 1, and then I was scaling, as opposed to earlier where I wasn't sure, and I said, let me just get my 1R. So, and I know when I've done this in the past, whenever you switch, you start getting 2Rs. I've been getting 2, 3Rs every time I've done a 1R now. And I know that's how it's supposed to happen. And I know if I switch back to 2Rs, I'll get 1Rs. I know that's how it works. That's just the law of the way things work. It wants to play with your mind. All right? So that's all good. All right? Now let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge, and that's what I try to share with you. Now, once the market opens, I use my market internals. That's my bread and butter. I use some anchor view of some little ICT smart money concepts, and my weekly expected move you get for free on my Discord. Okay. Now, hopefully, you join me every day. Subscribe, set that alert. Do this every morning. Give you the market news, economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards, technical analysis, and I give you the long and short trade scenarios in the Nasdaq and the ES futures. Okay. Now, if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord, Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay. I've still been hitting these pre-market scenarios. Okay. I've still been hitting them. Pretty accurate. All right. You can check it out on my performance recap and my daily receipts every day. You can see their pre-market scenarios line up. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Hey, anybody's willing to be a quant, make a little bot based on my analysis, be my guest. I welcome it. All right. Now, not every scenario is a trade setup, but it just builds my confidence and my confidence, the confidence in my community, right? To know that, okay, Steve knows what he's doing. Okay. Now, let's look at this crazy market. Futures watch list. Crazy markets. Silver up 6.8%. Ethereum up 6.30. Bitcoin up 3.85, over 70K. Russell's up 3.30. Nasdaq's up 3.26. Over 3% the Nasdaq. Woo! Gold up 2.64. ES up almost 2.5%. Okay. The Dow. Actually, markets are pulling back a little bit right now. So the ES was up over 2.5%. Now it's back. I mean, 30-year bonds being bought should send yields lower. Dollar down 1.11%. That should send metals higher. Okay. 10-year yield is down 2.12% at a 4.25 yield. Crude down 16 and almost an a half percent, down to $94 a barrel. Okay, that is huge, huge. The VIX is down 18.54%. We're at a 21 VIX. A 21 VIX. Okay, moving on to the Mag 7 Plus. This is just going to be a lot of stocks going crazy. GE is the biggest gainer pre-market, up 7.10%. Meta's up 4.89. Coinbase up 4.69. AMD up 4.64. Tesla's up 4.5%. Amazon up 4%. Google up 4%. Broadcom up 3.81. Nvidia up 3.5%. Boeing up 3.38. Look at all these 3%ers, man. Microsoft up 3.09. JP Morgan up 2.5%. Apple up over 2%. Netflix up 1.5%. Eli Lilly up 1.28 and Berkshire Hathaway 1.15. So everything's up. No shocker there. Oh boy. This thing keeps going crazy. GE Vernova. Everybody knows that's my little baby. All right. Up 5.57%. That thing's going to hit over 1,000. I'm hoping that splits eventually because this thing is just a monster. Okay. It's up at the $961 a share. That is crazy. Mining, NEM, up 5.20%. Uber up 4.5%. Oracle up 4.20%. Caterpillar up 4.16%. Goldman Sachs up 3.5%. Palantir almost up 3.5%. Home Depot up 3.25%. Qualcomm up 2.76%. Disney up 2%. Salesforce up 1.93%. Visa up 1.47%. Walmart up 1.23%. McDonald's up 1.20%. United Healthcare up 1%. J&J, Johnson & Johnson, up 0.46. PepsiCo, now you can get into the safety plays here. Then see they're not as up as much, right? Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo, Costco, up. It's flat. Chevron and Exxon are getting hit pretty hard. Energy should get hit pretty hard with this news. Okay? It should get hit pretty hard. Moving on. Sectors. Semis, no shocker there, almost up 5%. Technology up 3.81%. Discretionary up 3.5%. Industrials up 2.90%. Financials up 2.15%. Communications up over 2%. Base materials up 1.84%. Real estate up 1.49%. Healthcare up 1.34%. Utilities up 0.71%. Staples up 0.66%. And the laggard is energy, almost down 5%. All right. Not a shock there. Okay. Let's move on to the economic calendar now. Economic calendar. Today, we have 30-year mortgages. Previous was 6.57. Actual is 6.51. So it went down a little bit. We have EIA crude today at 10:30. Okay. Fed Daily speaks at 1:05. And you have FOMC minutes at 2 p.m. That's from the last FOMC meeting. Now, if I go to a 1-star, we have a 10-year note auction at 1 p.m. That might move the market a little bit. Okay. Let's look at the Trump schedule. I think the thing, if Trump doesn't talk, which he usually does, but really what you got to look at today is 1 p.m., the press briefing by White House Press Secretary Leavitt at 1 p.m. All right. President participates in an interview. It says closed press, though, at 2 p.m. Okay. So now, of course, he could talk or something like that during the rest of the day. I don't know. Okay. As far as stock news, let's see if there's any stock news because we know the news, the ceasefire. So that's not going to be anything crazy. Nope. All right. So moving on. All right. Oh, whoa. Okay. That is a little crazy what I'm seeing here. That's probably the little pullback. So what this says is Saudi Arabia's vital east-west oil pipeline carrying crude from the Gulf to the Red Sea for export has been attacked. Jesus, what the heck is going on? Ay. So now it says following the U.S. and Iran temporary ceasefire agreement, a surge of confidence rushed across global markets. Okay, yeah. But this is kind of crazy. This is just insane. That's the little pullback in the market. I don't know why that happened. Who did it? That's kind of crazy. Okay. So that's a little chink in this armor, but we're up a ton. All right. Now, now look. Ooh, it. All right, here we go. So at 8 a.m. already's happening. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary Hegseth press conference. So he's talking. Let me see here. He's saying that the troops are staying ready. All right. Just how many are stuck? The U.S. destroyed more than 90% of Iran's conventional Navy fleet. All right. Nothing new there. Okay. Let's go to some news if we don't know about it. We know the ceasefire. Delta pulls growth plans as fuel spike drives up cross. Let's see. U.S. bank profits to rise on deals, but Iran war fuels outlook uncertainty. Moody's cuts outlook on Blue Owl Fund to negative over surge in redemption requests. U.S. rejects aluminum tariff relief request from Ford. Let's see what else is going on. I mean, everything's moving up. So, PepsiCo cuts target price. All right, so PepsiCo got a price target cut. Alrighty. I think that's it, folks. Now we're up so much. I don't think it makes sense to look at bread charts with how they ended yesterday. It doesn't matter. The market's up so much. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go to the internals, which is my bread and butter here. Now, yesterday, they did get some weakness here. They did. Okay. Tech was down. They were weak. However, while I was looking at the chart, I said, this is where, like I said, a little experience comes in. Okay. Well, I know that deadline was approaching. And it's just probably not smart for a short to hold it into after the market. Okay. Hence why I was long in this area the first time I got stopped. Okay. So the internals were just not showing anything. So that's why I said you had free short up here, you had free long up here. At the end of the day, look, we ended positive because of that news. And then after the market, you know what happened. Okay. So nothing was really worrisome in internals. You did get a little weak here around 11 o'clock. But like I said, I was looking at the charts and I was like, I just don't think this market's going to sell off without knowing, right? The market doesn't know. So people just are going, you know what? I'll take my profits, right? And then we just ranged, came back. That's where I got long. And, right, I can't complain. Almost a 2-hour trade, so I can't complain. Okay? I don't want to sit here and complain about that because I'm not going to do that. Okay? Now, move on to daily charts. Daily charts. And it's I'll show you what's interesting about where we're at. Okay? So, dailies. So, yesterday, now remember that inverse head and shoulders, right? It's a bullish pattern. Oh boy, did that come into play? Ultimate balance, did that come into play? Yeah, that's why the move is so big. That's why the move is so big. Okay, so yesterday we kind of closed with a hammer, right? And then pretty much at last week's highs. Now the 200-day moving average was right in sight here, around 663. Guess what though? We're $13 over that. We're all the way up here at 676.60s. And guess what's right there, folks? The anchored VWAP for this year. There's that white line That's where we are. Let's go to an hourly chart. It's anchor VWAPs are time agnostic. Let's just go back to, let's say, a 4 hour. Let's do a 4 hour. Look at that. You can't make that up. You see that anchored VWAP? Boom. Tell me that don't matter. Tell me that anchor VWAP doesn't matter. Look at that. Boom. Guess what that means? That is the average buyer. And you could say seller, but let's just say the buyer from the beginning of the year. So the average buyer is flat for the year. That's what that means. It's equilibrium. That is crazy how that just boop. Okay? That, my friends, is crazy. Now, that's one anchored view. That's why you have to have them on your charts. Now, the expected move to the upside is staring at us right here as well. There's Friday's close. That like hot pink line or whatever you want to call that line, magenta, I think it. Okay? That's the expected move to the downside, right? Now, that yellow line, once I go back to a daily chart, and we make it let's do the 3 years here. All right, so once I do this, and this is why they're so important. Look at that yellow line. That's the anchor VWAP from last year. Where did we bottom? Anchor VWAP from 2025. Tell me they don't matter, because they do. Okay? We are right there at the year-to-date anchor VWAP. Do yourself a favor. Put it on your chart. Okay? Look at the bottom of our market. Look at where we're at now. Unbelievable. Right? So, let's look at the ES futures. Okay. Oh, let's go back there real quick. So I just want to talk about some moving averages real quick. What does that also mean? We're past the 50. We're right under the 100-day moving average. So we're going to be, I don't see us probably pushing up too much higher from here. Okay, but who knows? Okay. Futures. Futures are right at the 50-day moving average. Okay, right at the 50. We're kind of inside of prior monthly lows. That would be February's lows, the monthly lows. That's where we are in futures. Okay, now you can see where we're stopping here. A lot of congestion here. That is not a surprise. Okay, not a surprise. So big gap ups like this are pretty difficult to trade. Now, the one thing I can say, you got to lean more likely on a long unless you just want to try to catch that counter. Okay, but let's look at Qs, what they did. So Qs also anchor V up at 2025, right there. Okay. Now, anybody watching, you want me to share that indicator, the year-to-date anchor V up? I can share it with you if you want me to, for the 2025 and for this year. You put it in the chat, put it in my Discord. I'll share it with you. Okay, so 20-day moving average, right? So right here, we again last week's highs, right? 20-day simple moving average. Got a hammer candle. Okay, in that inverse head and shoulders pattern, right? Well, now technology was getting beat up a little bit, right? They are at 608 and a half. Year-to-date anchor VWAP is at 604. We're all the way up to the 100-day moving average, almost to the weekly expected move. So that market is all the way up here. Okay. Let's just see it in an hourly. So there's the anchor VWAP for the year. It bypassed that. It looks like it wants, look, this is last month's. So that would be what? March's monthly highs. That's a monster resistance. Look at that resistance here. Woo. So around 613. All right. 611 is the expected move to the upside. All right. So, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, let's go back to the year. Let's go back to, I always have mine on at least a 3-year timeline for this particular setup. All right, so look at that. We're all the way, oh, it's crazy that we're all the way up here. Now look at this congestion. This is very important. Look at all that trading volume here, right? So I would think you might be able to muster up the strength to push up to 613, but I don't think much higher. Okay, we just have a ceasefire. It's not like, but it's a good sign. I'm just saying. But it powered through all that volume in this year. That is pretty impressive. Okay, pretty impressive. Now, Nasdaq futures. That is definitely, whoop, I got to do that. Okay, Nasdaq futures. So, whoop, we're right here. Look to the left. Look at all that trading range. So if we want to make a little box around this trading range, right, we're right in the middle of the garbage. Now, to give you some more perspective on that, it's the most traded price of the last 2 months is 25052s. We're right above that of the last 2 months, not the last month, the last 2 months, which makes sense. Look, you're just in the middle of this range. Okay, makes sense why we're stopping here. It makes sense. Makes total sense. Okay. Can we power up to the two? Like again, this level equal to the 613 is about 25464s in the Nasdaq. Okay. We are battling. This was a daily supply a little bit. There's a daily supply right here. Right here. Okay. Let's see what happens. Now, let's look at the breadth, how we ended yesterday. Actually, it was weaker, the breadth, than the previous day. Interesting. Only 29% over there. This is going to change. That's what I'm saying. So that's going to change. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about the hourly charts. Now, is there a ton to talk about? I mean, we're up pretty substantially here. Okay, we're up pretty substantially. We tiptoed. Okay, let's get into it without me showing you. We tiptoed into this supply here. It's a heavy supply. And let's go. Okay, so on this chart, you have heavy supply right here. Okay, heavy supply. Okay, so it doesn't have an easy ride up. Now, can it? Of course, when it came a long way, right? So I think what you're going to have to do today, okay, all right, what we're going to have to do today, okay, let me get my marker out. So what I most likely happens today is, now look, you just ripped up and we're holding the highs, right? So big gap ups are never awesome to trade. Okay, now you can see the last 4 hours is like a doji, but the daily chart is woo, right? So what you're going to look at, here is there's a stacked demand zones here, and you just want basically the 6800 defended, because what's probably going to happen, there's one of two things, okay, is we're going to open, push into this supply, and people are probably going to take some profits. Okay, and you're going to pull back probably inside this demand. And that is where people who didn't get in yet might want to FOMO in, and that market will try to push up. Okay. Now we know That is poor structure. That move, that's emotional. Okay? I don't have to mark it off because I can see it. But if you do wind up coming in here, any support is bullish. However, if the market starts to really turn, which I don't, like I said, with this news right now, I don't think anybody is going to short it. Like short it to try to take all that out unless there's, I don't know, some negative news or what happened earlier. There was already something attacked, right? So that's what I'm thinking for right now. Okay. I know above us is not the easiest ride. Okay. All right. So let's talk about that NASDAQ now. Like I said, it's very simple today. I wouldn't call it easy. I would not call it easy. Okay. Now let's put a, let me put a little swing high here. Right here. Okay. So like I said, we have equal low here. We'll get into that stuff in a second here. Okay. So NASDAQ's not going to be too much different. I showed you, all right, now look this right here. See that high volume node right there? 25052s. That's the most traded price of the last 2 months. It happens to be the most traded price of this year. Okay? We're above it. That's bullish. That's a good price. Now you're going to see why. Look at the friggin' trading action in the NASDAQ there. Remember I was just showing you that? I want to show you how beastly that level is. Look at the trading going on there. Okay? Look, this member of the last 2 months and of this year, it's the most traded volume. Let's put some perspective on that. Let's do it. Let's just do a profile from the beginning here. We'll run it straight through to now. Boom. Let's see. Boom. Look at that volume. Woo. See what I'm talking about? Right in that box, right where I said the 25050s. Right? I don't have to put that on because I have it here, but I just wanted to give you some perspective there. Let's even put it down on a 4-hour. Okay. Look at that volume. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And now you're not done with it. Okay, you're not done with it. But that is pretty impressive. Okay, that it ripped through it and now we're in the middle of this, right? So I don't expect the market to just rip up. It did its job. Okay, so I don't have expectations to this market to just rip, 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 rip. I don't have that expectation. But I don't know. Okay, I just wanted to give you the volume that you're dealing with in the NASDAQ to give you a visual to know what we're dealing with here. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. So that 25050s, let's just call it. Okay, you don't want to lose it. That's all. That's a level you do not want to lose in the NASDAQ. All right, big emotional push out of ultimate balance here. 242s, right up to where? The most traded price of the last 2 months, the most traded price of this year, and you're holding above it. That is bullish, but you're in supply right now. Actually, this supply was taken out. I can get rid of that. Boop. There we go. So we just took out that supply, that little wick. So whenever it gets taken out, I'm going to remove it. I know there's a swing high from the past here. Okay, so we'll see. Okay, this is not going to have an easy way down because there's a bunch of stacked demand here. Okay, so we'll have to see what happens here. That's an aggressive buyer that just came into the market. So we'll have to see. Like I said, we could range today. We're in a big move higher. I think we'll probably have a range day. Maybe go up a little more. Do you have a continuation day? I don't know. I really don't. All right. I got to play the market I'm going to have in front of me. I really don't know. Big, big, big gap up. I'm sure there's going to be people. FOMOing in because they're going to be like, man, I didn't buy the dip. Oh, I bought it. I bought it. I added some new positions and added some existing positions. So, particularly Hood. Hood probably is my. I mean, I did ServiceNow, Hood, Microsoft. What else? Palo Alto didn't give me that shot at it. Netflix I added. So, we'll see. Again, not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I did. Okay, so let's move on. Let's look at that market profile, volume profile. All right, so here's your market profile, volume profile. Now, huge gap up, boy. Boy, oh boy. And we got some single prints in the profile, which just means emotional buying. You can see the thin volume. Now, of course, if so, I don't know what would come out that is bearish, but we got to talk about the elephant in the room, or my elephant on a toothpick, because that's what you have here. If this market was, this is the elephant, that's the toothpick. If there was something that broke the ceasefire, or someone that I don't, something that could be crazy. That could be crazy. All right. Now, a couple things here. Let's break this out. Okay. Let's get into the ES long and short trade scenarios. We'll start out here now. Okay. All right. So, big gap up. When we have a gap like this, there's two things you're going to want to do. Okay. Mark off the gap fill, which I don't think is really in the zone of possibility today, but 66, 64s. That's your gap fill. Okay. The next thing you want to do is mark off the 50% retracement of the overnight session. That's 67.50. Okay. Now, the market has an most trader price of the overnight. That is 68.30. And we know most likely they're longs. They're most likely longs. We know we have heavy supply, overhead supply, starting at 68.48. We know we have a stacked demand here, starting at, let's see here, 68.24s. Okay? So, let's get into the scenarios. And we're going to start off with the long. Okay? So, any push passed down through 68.30, the most traded price of the overnights, should cause some selling into this demand zone that we just talked about. Okay, so what I would look for, okay, is any move lower, but let's say the market might juice up a little bit. Maybe it pushes up, taps into this supply, okay, overnight highs, and then people take profits. The market rips down to through 68.30, the most traded price of the overnight, into the demand zone at 68.24 and 68.20. Now, what would I want to see here? Well, of course, I want to see support. Okay? So, as long as this holds in any way possible, puts a knife in the ground, jumps up, gives you that lower high, I'm going to target, if this happens in the real-time trading hours, the high of day, whatever that would be, or probably a good level here would be 68.47s. Okay? Now, there's heavy supply up here, so this might be either a dribble higher, because the one thing you have to think about too is who was short at the market close yesterday, which, I mean, boy, oh boy, I would not like to be in options if I had calls. I'm sorry, if I had puts. Boy, oh boy, you're hurting. So, this is another reason why I like a pullback, right? Because what might happen here, and happens sometimes, is if some people who had puts wait for some pullback, they're getting out. And then it can do new longs and they turn into buyers because they're getting out of their positions. Okay? Number two, this would need to happen very quickly. I wouldn't be as fan as much of this, but I have to put it there. So if the market did kind of pull back, right, and it broke that demand, well, then you have some single prints here at the 67.80s. If that's supportive, that is bullish. You go long targeting high day. The last line here is this needs to happen quick. I don't want to slow methodical sell off to here. I don't really want that. But if we get a quick one and you're like, "Oh my god," and it goes to the 50% retracement of the overnights. This is the last line where I'm probably going to think about getting long. It's only if this happens quickly. If you get support there, whoop, nice push up, lower high, retest, you go long, my friends. Okay? Now, shorts. And there is one in here. Okay? I am probably going to stay away unless I see something that's undeniable. Now, obviously, what I just talked about in the long scenario is this. This is what I would like to have. 68.30 is your most traded price to get overnight. I think if we open up, gap and go, and we push into this supply at 68.47, we break the overnight highs, but come back inside the range, lower high, you're going to short here, target 68.30. That's the most traded price of overnight. Now, if you break that, okay, try to target the 6800s, the end of this demand. Like I said, I don't think you get much more than that. Okay? I don't think so unless something news happens. Okay? That's probably all I'm interested in if I do something. Okay? That's it. Now, let's go to the NASDAQ and we'll wrap it up. Now remember, the big green box here is the most traded price of this year, the most traded price of the last 2 months. That's your 25050s. That's the big level, folks, for the NASDAQ. That's a very, very big level. Okay? That is your defense. All right? So let's get into the long and short trade scenarios in the NASDAQ futures right now. Now, let's mark off some levels. Like I said, we're gapping up. First thing you want to do, okay, mark off yesterday's highs, 244s. I don't think we go down here. That would be crazy if we did. Okay, that'd be crazy, insane if we did. The next thing is the 50% retracement of the overnights, 24809s. 24809s is your 50% retracement of the NASDAQ. Now, you do have patches of single prints. Okay, that is emotional buying. Okay, that is emotional buying. Okay, so now we have overhead supply at 253. So 253 is overhead supply. Now we have demand starting at 25190s. We have another demand at 25120s. 25120s. Okay? So, let's get right into scenarios here. And we're going to go with the long. Okay? Okay. Most traded price of the overnight, we're looking at 252s. Okay? So, for a long, like I said, we could even push up here, break the overnight highs, hit supply, and then sellers come in. You go through the 252s and pull back. Now, into this demand, yes, you can get long, and I don't know how much space you got there. It's not really my favorite. It's kind of shallow. I would probably prefer a deeper pullback into the 251s with this demand, right? And then you're also hitting the 25050's most traded price of this year. This is really the one that I like to have, okay? If this holds and you get a higher low, you go long targeting the overnight highs, 25250's. Maybe that might be the high of days, or you target the supply up here at 253's. Okay. Now remember, if we get a quick pullback, okay, right in these single prints at 249, that is also single prints become support, and that's bullish. You go long targeting the 253's. I have to put it here. I'm not a fan of too much. It depends how we come down there. But if we came down quick to the 50% retracement, 248s, high or low, you target up here. Okay. I know I just gave you multiple scenarios, but you could tell I'm pretty bullish bias. Okay. Now, for the short, it's going to be pretty similar to the ES. Okay. Pretty similar to the ES. Okay. So what would I look for? I want to see a gap and go into supply at 253. Now, I would like to get a rejection here, sweep into their lower high, short that, go through 252s, okay, and see if you could tap, go all the way down to the 25050s. That would probably be your best bet for a target, okay? Now, below that, if you find acceptance here, woof, yes, it can go and fall apart. I just don't think that's probably in the cards today without a news catalyst. Okay? All right, folks. That's about it. Okay? Now, so let's look at my market overall outlook. Now, I showed you the SPY went into the year-to-date anchored VWAP. QQQ went to the 100-day moving average, and it has a clear 613 resistance level it can go to. Okay? The expected move is at 611 in the QQQ. Okay, so in a big gap up like this, all right, like I said, if anybody was short and kept the short on yesterday, they are in trouble. And so any kind of pullback, right, that we get in this market is probably going to be a time where those shorts that are left are going to have to get out of their positions and they turn into buyers. That's why I think any pullback down into those demand zones is probably a buy. Okay? So I'm not going to look to go gap and go with the market at all. I've seen it too many times where you usually get a pullback. So that's what I'm looking for. I definitely have a bias, a bullish bias today. Okay, I definitely have a bullish bias today. So that is my analysis for today. Smash that like button if you enjoyed that. That would help me out tremendously. Okay. Now, hopefully, you subscribe, set that alert. Do this every morning. Give you the market story, the market news, the economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards. I just gave you technical analysis, and I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios in ES and the Nasdaq futures. Hopefully, you appreciate it. All right. Now, if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That is Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay, probably go live today. Probably around 9:50 a.m. Come join me, ask me questions. See how I give the minute-to-minute updates of what the market is doing. Okay? Now, everybody, we have our plans. Remember, try to follow your process, your edge, whatever it is. No trade is a trade. Hopefully, everybody has a green position today, or a green day. Remember, flat days also not that bad. Okay, as long as you follow your plan and your process. Okay. Now, if I don't see you in my Discord, I hope to see you tomorrow morning. Everybody,